Now, Ethiopia's military launched airstrikes on the capital of the war-battered Tigray region on Monday. Tigray media and local hospital sources say the attack on Mekelle killed 3 civilians. Ethiopia's government initially denied it had conducted airstrikes, but later state-run media said the Air Force targeted communications infrastructure in the city. The air raids were the first on Mekelle since the early stages of the war in northern Ethiopia, which began nearly a year ago. The United Nations says it is concerned about the escalation of violence. And for more on this, we can speak to the journalist Coletta Wanjoi, who is standing by for us in Addis Ababa. It's good to see you, Coletta. As we've just heard, a government official in Ethiopia initially denied the airstrikes. What more can you tell us about these air raids?
Well, it's not the first complaints or concerns of air raids that have come. We've seen in the past week the Tigray People's Liberation Front, which is the rebel faction that the government is fighting against, has been saying that airstrikes have been happening, and the government went quiet. So this is the first time, at least in a span of about a week, that the government is admitting, yes, that indeed airstrikes happened. Well, now the target now still remains unclear because the government says it targeted equipment, communication equipment used by the rebel forces, but the TPLF says that the government targeted a marketplace, a market day. So that means there were casualties. So what we have for now, because there is little information coming from there is little access into the region, what we have is one faction speaking against the other party. That's where we are. But at the end of the day, the United Nations is pulling out some of its, some agencies are pulling out some of its workers because of some of these issues.
Coletta, fighting between the Ethiopian military and the self-proclaimed Tigrayan forces has intensified lately. What is the situation for people living in the region right now? You were just pointing out that it's difficult to access the region anyway.
Yes, as I was saying, like if humanitarian agencies are pulling out because they cannot be able to supply or to coordinate the operations on the other side, that means it's weighing down heavily on the citizens the other side. We know the UN is saying about 5 million people, at least 5 million people within the Tigray region alone need help, but very little is going in. They expect at least 100 trucks per day to be going in, but that's not happening. It's very low level of supply going in. So that means the people are still exposed to more dire humanitarian needs with little help. And that becomes a big issue, not only for the government, not only for the citizens, but the international community, because it's bigger than the government now.
Right. And what's the feeling there, Coletta, about how much this conflict could expand in Ethiopia or perhaps even outside the borders of Ethiopia?
Well, it is already a big concern because we know the conflict began within the Tigray region. Then after some time, it spilled over to 2 other regions, that is the Amhara and Afar. But we already know there is an international aspect to it because refugees fled to Sudan, So everybody is cautious. Djibouti on the other side is also on alert because it shares a border. So it is beyond the territory of Ethiopia. And that means, and that's why we are seeing maybe the African Union coming in, the US, the European Union, and all this international community saying something needs to be done. Talks need to happen. How and when that will happen is still a big issue.
All right, that's the journalist Coletta Wanjoi talking to us from Addis Ababa. Thank you for your reporting, Coletta.